7 o'clock, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the May 19th, 2026 Pendleton Board of Zoning Appeals. We'll do a roll call, starting to my left. James King, Kyle Eklund.
Jenny Sisson.
We do have a quorum. The minutes from the April meeting are on your drive. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Motion, do we have a second?
I second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. All right, so we're gonna reorder the agenda here a little bit. We're gonna start with item C, old C, which is 331 South Broadway. Then second, we're gonna do new business at 6290 South 425 West. And then the last item will be old business B at 0625 West.
And then just for formality, need a motion to amend the
Okay.
agenda to go in that order, and then a second.
Okay, do I have a motion to amend the agenda as stated?
I
Second,
second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the agenda has been adjusted and we'll start with 331 South Broadway.
All right, so first petition.
Oh, yeah, we have James gonna recuse himself.
Oh, you don't have to leave. Okay, so James King recusing himself. All right, so 331 South Broadway, the site details currently zoned residential core conservancy. Oh, thank you. Which is our RC zoning. It's approximately 0.5 acres used as a single family residence. And you can see the main access to the property is from Broadway Street. There is an alley back here, but it is not accessed off of that alley. Any questions on the location as it is right now? Okay. So the petitioner is requesting a variance to do the following. He would like to build a new garage where this red square is. It's pretty much exactly where the other one is located. To have the garage door fed from Broadway instead of rear load, which is what we require in RC zoning for new structures. So they would like to maintain that Broadway access and not from the alley, utilizing vinyl siding as is present on the current garage and the home, and which is prohibited in our RC zones, and then a taller than the 18-foot maximum. So we have a rule of 18 feet or no taller than the primary structure, whichever is less. This home's about 25 feet tall, but they would like a 22-foot accessory structure, which is taller than that 18. So the garage would be increased in size just slightly from about 690 to 830 square feet. That is compliant with the accessory structure standards that we have. And like I said, it'd be in the same location. This meets our setback standards of 5 feet per side and rear. These are currently about 10. So that they're already compliant. I mean, this is a property that goes to kind of the middle of this. So that's the ask. Is there any questions on the ask? I'll move into kind of some renderings we have. So this is the proposed new building. This is the face that you would see from Broadway. It's got a bit of a front porch, well, not porch, but an overhang feature. And then this is the old structure plus the new additional area to show that full new square footage. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. The petitioner, Mr. Shanks, is also here if you have any questions for him as well. But anything we can answer for you, let us know.
This is
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
but over that, then I'll remove the
Yeah,
staff.
and then we'll do staff analysis afterwards.
All right, 7:04 PM, I'll open the public hearing for V 421 2026-01. Is there anybody online or in person here that wishes to speak on this petition?
No, no.
Okay, anybody here? Seeing none, I'll 7:05, 'I'll close the public hearing. I guess we can move to staff analysis, and was there any, written communication from notices or anything?
Nope. Nope. Okay. So function of planning staff is to analyze the petition against approved and relevant plans and ordinances, as well as any existing conditions and or variances placed upon the site. To present facts and analysis, so based on that analysis, staff has the following comments. The orientation and access to the existing garage is already facing South Broadway Street and does not propose a new driveway cut anywhere. The home is approximately 25 feet tall, so the proposed new garage structure, while it is taller than our standard, is still not taller than the primary structure. The use of vinyl is consistent with the existing garage that's there, as well as parts of the primary structure. Those materials are already in use. Does not pose any risk to public health, welfare, or safety, and would be built to all applicable IBC standards. This would require a building permit that Brett would then go through and do any needed inspections on. And I also wanted to comment that the garage does sit back pretty far off the road. I mean, it's back to the alley. So it's not, really detracting from the visual feel of the street anyways. So that position is not going to be changing. So that's my analysis. If you have any questions for me before you go through your bullet points, happy to answer that.
So is the current structure like an L shape kind of? Is it not a rectangle? That, like that sketch on the grid paper?
Oh, the sketch on the grid paper, gotcha. So, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
So kind of filling in
So
this
it's
space on
square.
the southwest.
Roughly 12 by 12 section.
Mhm.
Questions? That good for me? You want to add anything? Commissioner want to add anything to the?
No, really the only thing I would add is the structure, we're gonna try and reuse a lot of what the structure there as far as the walls, if they're salvageable, once we get the roof's gonna definitely be torn off because it's in poor shape. But we'd like to we're gonna reuse the foundation. We'd like to use as much of the wall structure as possible. And the siding, I think, is one of the things we're asking for variance for. Our house is also sided, several of the homes in the area are vinyl sided. And honestly, I would like to do a different siding or like a party board or something like that, but I don't want to get to the end of the project and find that we're getting pigeonholed just because of the cost aspect of it. So that's the primary reason for the variance on the vinyl siding, not necessarily what we're going to use, but we want to have that option open to us should we need it.
Any other questions? We can go through the criteria. All right, so staff did a good analysis here. We can kind of use that as we go through the 5 criteria for the BZA. The approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Like Hannah said, the site already has access to Broadway. They're not changing the access or the location of the existing garage. So I don't think there's an impact there. So I think we can check that box. The second one, the use and value of the adjacent area will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Rebuilding the garage basically where it's at with similar materials. So, and it's not really visible from Broadway, prominent visual, so I think we're good on the second item. The third item, the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in use of the property. So this one, wanting to reuse the same material that matches the house and that's on the garage. And then the height, I guess the height restriction is just based on the width of the existing structure and the slope of the road, so. And it being below the height of the primary structure. That's kind of a secondary criteria in the UDO, I guess. The accessory structure is supposed to be below, so. Since it meets that criteria, I would say that that criteria has been met. The variance granted is the minimum necessary. So we're looking for just height and material, those two items, right?
And the access remaining on the Broadway.
And keeping the same access. So that, to me, appears to be the minimum, those three items. And the variance granted does not correct a hardship caused by a former or current owner. Pretty sure that garage existed well before we had any zoning codes, so. I think it satisfies the 5 criteria. Is there any additional?
I think this looks pretty straightforward.
Well, if there's no further comment or questions for staff or petitioner, I would entertain a motion to approve the variance. B 2026-01 for a height of. Height of 22 feet, use of vinyl consistent with the existing materials, and access to remain as it exists off the Broadway Street.
I make a motion to approve B 04-21-2026-01.
Motion by the second. Get a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, second
Unless you
item.
want to. You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Shea.
We're gonna do new business A, 6290 South 425 West.
Come on. Okay.
Welcome you back to the.
All right, so this site is zoned single family large lot, which is our SF1 zoning. It's approximately 0.84 acres and used as a single family residence. It's also surrounded by other single family large lot zones, that yellow there, and large and small lot agriculture, which is both shades of green. So the petitioner is requesting a variance to allow for a new accessory structure, which have shown right here in this blue rectangle to do the following. They would like to use exposed fastener standing seam metal for the exterior finish of the structure. We do allow standing seam metal as long as it is concealed in this zone, but exposed is prohibited. Allowing for a height of 20 feet, which is taller than the primary structure. It's about a 15-foot-ish single-story home. As kind of we talked about in the last one, 18-foot allowance or no taller than the primary structure, whichever is less is the standard. And then allowing for a larger accessory structure footprint at 1728, which is 36 by 48 feet. Our maximum accessory structure is 50% or less of the primary structure, which in this case, the primary structure is 1,984 square feet, making the maximum allowance 992. So I do have it in my analysis, but I do want to note that the HOA in this area recently asked some new allowances to have a larger accessory structure of up to 36 by 48. However, our standard is, no more than 50%, which is why they're here for that variance. So any questions on the structure, the asks, the location, anything like that? It does meet setback standards. It's placed here. They're only 5 feet side and rear, not too deep for an accessory structure. And then we've got some renderings of what the building would look like, as well as the site layout for the petitioner. So it's got 2 garage doors here, a kind of porch feature. And then, Mr. Butler, are you gonna be accessing this with some sort of drive back here? Like
Eventually, yes, ma'am.
to come off of your existing driveway to reach the doors back there?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So that's to ask. Any questions for myself or petitioner going through this?
This was a reason that the exposed fastener was chosen over what our UDO allows.
That'd be up to the petitioner.
No, this was something that honestly I was going to build the majority of it myself. It was similar to buildings around us, and I really didn't even look into going something different than the fasteners themselves. Obviously, the plan, I have another building out there that's gonna be torn down. The pool is no longer there at this time. So that's my plan, and then again, to make some sort of a drive back to it.
Public hearing?
Mhm.
All right, 7:15, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody online or in person who wishes to speak on this petition? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. We can move to staff analysis.
So the function of planning staff is to analyze the petition against approved relevant plans and ordinances, as well as any existing conditions or variances that may be placed upon the site to present facts and analysis. So based on that analysis, staff has the following comments. There are, to Mr. Butler's point, there are a few accessory structures in the surrounding area that are 50% or more and use some of the similar metal materials as what he's wanting to use. It does meet the new neighborhood covenants for Shady Bend Estates for a larger accessory structure footprint. A large accessory structure, 24.5 feet in height, 1,230 square feet in size was approved by the board nearby. I think just up the street in May of last year. I believe it was a golf simulator, right? The ultimate man cave. So moving on, the garage does not pose a risk to public health, welfare, or safety. And then again, will be built to all applicable IBC standards and will require a building permit and inspections per our building inspector. So that's what I have. Any questions for myself or petitioner? Just listen.
So in that one you referenced down the way, I think that one was still shorter than the primary structure.
I believe it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one was a full 2-story home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Big property way back off the street.
Yeah, these are all, Shady Bend are all pretty large properties. I'd say probably 3/4 to, 1.15 acres. They're relatively large. It's an older subdivision. I believe it was platted sometime in the 80s. So, kind of that large lot subdivision out there. All of those are SF1 homes.
The one that's over on Old 172, that has the lights on all around it. Across from the entrance to Red Oak Estates or whatever it is.
Yeah, we have to go.
Where was it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
That was tall.
Farrar.
that was taller,
That was tall.
because his is a single
Yeah, what was
50s,
this?
60s.
Yeah, his was SF1 as well, if I'm not
And
mistaken.
it's a larger property.
Henry Farrar.
Yeah, and that one was before we changed the square footage maximum significantly. That came in right before all of the maximum of 50%.
And the height too. We changed the
So,
height.
The height, yeah, we actually ended up increasing that to accommodate a lot of the trends that we're needing for the 18 feet.
Right,
This is like
right,
maybe
yeah.
17.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And that one was slightly, it was offset, but it's not as far back as.
No, this is completely in the rear of the property. Mr. Butler, are you planning on doing just the minimum setbacks? So
Yeah.
5 feet
Yes.
from the rear and then pretty significant from the side,
Centered, yeah.
pretty far away from the property. Oh, yeah, there we go. So it'll sit pretty far back there.
I mean, we do have SF1 properties that are much smaller than this,
Our minimum size is 21,780. So,
5 acre.
Hmm.
So probably half this size.
mhm. Yeah,
The
now,
structure's larger, but it's a pretty large lot.
it is a pretty large lot. I would say most of our SF1 is pretty significant. I mean, we do have some that are smaller. But that would just be the minimum size for a subdivider to come in and be able to use that. It certainly can get bigger.
Discussion or questions?
The, accessory structure not exceeding 50% of the primary structure, is that the only limit, or is there an actual like, and also not over
No,
12?
it's just 50%.
I feel like we did another, variance for the fasteners on another.
We did, it's the one out on Old
Is that the one
132.
Yeah.
And it was cost prohibitive in that case. And I, honest, yes, it's a huge difference. And he wasn't gonna be able to do it unless it was together. And I do feel like some discussion when that got put into, through the plan commission,
Mhm.
was the whole trend of barn dominiums and then, you know, your commercial properties, not wanting a bunch of the rivets
Mhm.
on those type of structures that take over the town. And it wasn't, and I know we didn't have discussion on not necessarily situations like this, your one-offs,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So we were going to then listen to those on a case-by-case basis.
And I mean, same as with the height that, was recently changed, if
Yeah.
we get more and more of those requests, it's something that the planning commission can look at to amend in the UDO if they want to allow that exposed fastener in certain zones to start or only in certain situations or, things like that.
And the
They
height,
can do that too.
the height, we did not just want it, the secondary structure to overpower the
Yes.
primary structure.
Right.
So again, that's why we have to take it
Right.
case by case basis. And property size matters.
Yeah. So that might be something you look at with planning commission, if you have a lot of this size and, no matter the zoning, if you want to be able to use those exposed fasteners, you can. That's something that code book could change
Is there a roof pitch requirement,
on primary structure.
but not on accessories?
That is correct. Yes. The 12 by 12 on the price.
I think the way it's written now, especially with things like fasteners, it lets us be very fact specific. There's probably some of these homes that might have been built out there before this was even in the town.
Mhm.
This was annexed at some point. And it lets us be fact specific. I mean, a house that, or a accessory structure that dominates the primary structure is gonna look a lot different downtown than it is gonna look out here. It was essentially, I mean, when I worked for the town, this was rural residential, and there were very few rules out there.
Yeah.
So I think this lets us be fact specific and see that this is pretty harmonious with the area.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But, yeah, there's so far at the back of the lot, from the street, it's not gonna be imposing. Any other input from the petitioner, or
No, sir.
did we receive any written communication? I guess we'll go through the 5 criteria. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community.
Well, they-
Yeah, I think the placement on the parcel, it's a large lot. Low maintenance materials. There are other nearby structures that are similar in size. I think that kind of covers the first and the second.
Correct.
Use and value adjacent property, there's other adjacent or nearby properties being used in substantially similar manner, so. It, like it was said, it's harmonious with the neighborhood. Strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in use of the property. And so, just due to the size of the home and the height of the home being a range, that limits you to a pretty small structure. And, apparently the neighbors at Shady Bend Estates are fine with a larger structure because they just approved that in their covenants, so. Number 3 is fine. Variance granted is the minimum necessary, so the size that's requested and the height is requested is exactly what's proposed to be built. And the 5th item, the variance granted does not correct a hardship caused by a former or current owner of the property, so this is not an existing structure. And like Rob said, this was zoned and built long before these requirements were enacted, so I think it satisfies that. Any additional? No other comment? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion regarding this variance for the request of a height of 20 feet.
Yeah.
Allow for a height of 20 feet and an accessory structure of 1728 square feet. So that's still less.
And faster.
And exposed fast, correct.
I'll make the motion as presented.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Aye.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye, opposed. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You don't have to stick around unless you want to. Yeah, you're welcome.
Appreciate
No problem.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and, apply your building permit when you're ready. Mhm.
All right, we're gonna move on to the final item of business here, which is old business fee. 18 acres on 625 West.
Good evening. Yes, if you recall, this petition was, it's located at 0625 West. This petitioner had filed back in February. It was originally presented at March BZA meeting. We then went into the April Board of Zoning Appeals meeting with the intention to kind of bring back some additional information as far as what the minimum setbacks could look like. So we'll kind of give a quick recap as far as the actual site details and petition a little bit, since it's been a couple of months, and then we'll go into our staff analysis. But at the April Board of Zoning Appeals, the petitioner was not able to attend, so the board, as courtesy, then continued it to tonight's meeting. So petitioner Tyler Hazel, he is here present this evening. So if you have any questions for him, he can also answer questions as well. Just a little bit of quick recap on the site. It is rural residential. It is located on the west end of town, off of 625. There's about 18.3 acres there. It's currently undeveloped at this time. You can recall back in October of 2024, the Plan Commission had rezoned this parcel from Ag 1 to rural residential with the intentions of likely being split into 2 residential lots and being developed from there. This petitioner chose and elected to purchase this property in its entirety. So he is the owner of this lot and is bringing forth this petition. As you see, this lot is quite covered with large wooded area. Also, you have the Foster's Branch Creek that runs through that parcel. This is a area that is quite, as far as floodway, it is covered about 40 to 45% of the parcel is in the FEMA floodway for this particular parcel. This creek is in areas is more shallow than others. Some it's down to kind of the bedrock and rock area. But it is in most instances somewhere between 20 and 30 feet across. So it is a pretty wide area. This area is quite the watershed within that west side of town. This is neighbored by a couple of subdivisions a little bit farther to the west. On the other side of 625, you'll find Jefferson Place. It is a residential subdivision. SF1 would be kind of in our equivalent, but is not within the jurisdiction within the town of Pendleton. But we also do have kind of bordering to the east and south there. You'll see there highlighted in yellow is Fox Run, and that is an SF1 residential neighborhood as well. To remind you, there are some letters. We did receive a staff 5 remonstrance letters for this petition. All of those submitters have indicated that they do still stand on those letters that have been submitted. After the meeting here, there was some further conversation with the petitioner and looking at kind of more of a definitive layout as far as what that minimum need is. So as far as the request here, the petitioner is still wanting to pursue the request for a conditional use for livestock raising. In the particular zoning for rural residential, the hobby farm is permitted by right. And as you see there in that table there outlines what those restrictions are. So that is an animal type, animal count, a minimum acreage that's needed to accommodate and house those animals, as well as those setbacks that are required. This petitioner, it would like to elect to be considered for livestock raising. That is more general and more open range permission with that. However, the petitioner is willing to commit to limiting to what you see here in the table as far as the animal type and the animal count. So if they were, for example, were to house 2 large animals, they could then maybe do 2 cows or a house or a horse and a cow, and similar animals of that size. For sheep, smaller mid-sized animals, goats, they would be limited to 6. So if the conditional use then is permitted, then those limitations as far as animals and count and setbacks completely are eliminated. So it would go under what would be similar to what you would find in an Ag 1 or Ag 2 zoning classification on that. With the setbacks, looking at what is normally and what would be required in the layout here, if you take a look at those residential properties there at Fox Run, there is a limitation as far as setbacks from the boundaries of that pasture that is based on 2 factors. One factor is 35 feet minimum from the property line, but then also a minimum of 150 feet. This would be for a large animal, and the petitioner does have interest in cows, 4-H animals for the family, but it also would be a minimum of 150 feet from the nearest foundation. So we'll take a look at here kind of in the next slide as far as kind of where that lines up. And what it does is it prevents, there are 2 areas that he would like to use and establish as 2 separated pasture areas. The one particular area in conforming to those setback limits, then it takes a 4.5 acre area down to about a 2.5 acre area for a pasture, basing that on those guidelines for the hobby farm.
So that dashed yellow
So,
meets the 35 feet and the 150 feet.
so so the solid yellow would be in compliance here with the hobby farm. And then here also as well would follow and be compliant with the hobby farm, because there's no homes here. Well, this here, it would be kind of right in here where the home is though. But this is where the petitioner is proposing to build and construct a home. This here, they have, petitioners also decided that they do not want to utilize the west side of the creek that kind of runs along here. So you'll see this line here is what is compliant with the 150 feet, you know, from the property line and nearest foundation. But they want to go ahead and set the pasture here with the dashed yellow line, so that way that you would not have where those cows or those animals would be able to pasture across the creek.
So
we
that's
kind of talked about
the
that.
line is the creek. I got you.
Yes, kind of right in there. So he would stay just on the west side of that creek. There was communication with the Indiana DNR, finding out that there were some pretty extensive permitting processes and costs to allow that free range for those animals to kind of cross and come and go as they please. So he would need to put some farm fencing up to secure 2 separate pastures. So there would be one pasture here to the west side. He's not quite for sure where he wants to set that pasture at this point. because at this point, he still wishes to pursue the livestock raising conditional use, which would eliminate those setback requirements. This, up in this area here, this is what the hobby farm would limit here. And what he is seeking is to then be able to have that property line. You'll see this black line just happens to fall about that 35 feet from the property line. It's just another sliver of a parcel there that he also owns. But as far as to meet that 150 feet from the nearest foundation, it would put that pasture area limits back up here, kind of reduce this area here. Same thing here, 150 feet. There is a property here you cannot see here that has a foundation within 150 feet. So the intent and the hope is to maximize as much of the acreage there. That would bring about a total of maybe 8 acres to be able to be utilized for pasture purposes. As far as an animal building, likewise, at this point in time, is not ready to make a decision on where he would like to have an animal building. That animal building is still subject to those same setbacks, the same as a pasture. But we'll talk about those requirements here in a minute, though. But petitioner does desire the following, to create 2 separate pastures, fenced-in areas, east area being used as the primary, west here, which would be east of the home once it's constructed, as the secondary pasture. The petitioner would like to clear, actually has already started a little bit, clearing the wooded areas that are primarily overgrown with invasive bushes, sapling trees, and ivy over time to better improve the area for the pasture. There's intentions to rotate the pasture grounds for limited animals for the hobby farm, per the hobby farm guidelines. Then also what the petitioner would do, there would be 2 separated pasture areas. Right in here, though, would be a crossing that the animals would then be manually led from gate to gate by the land owner. This manual guide would guide the cows across the creek by tying the lead rope around the neck of the cow. And these were instructions provided by Indiana DNR representative. Petitioner wishes to utilize full of the northeast portion of the land with 0 setback versus 150 feet from the foundations or 35 feet from the lot lines as required. Utilization of the land west of the creek on the southwest portion, so this portion here, would be utilizing up to 6 acres of those total 10 acres for pasture. The location, again, and the details of the land building and the animal type is still to be determined at this point. They in discussion here, I want to go ahead and point out kind of before we go on here, if you look at as far as minimum setback based on some areas here. So right here where the cows would cross, there's about 60-foot stretch there. It would need a variance if we went the route of a variance of development standard versus a conditional use. So if we had the permitted hobby farm with a variance of development standard to accomplish the setback variance, then you'd be looking at about a 25-foot setback from end to end there, north to south, to give about a 10-foot gap in that creek to be able to cross then over to the other side. As far as this area in here, to meet the more desired use of that area, instead of say 150 feet from the foundation closest to it, would be looking at a variance request of about 75 to 100 feet. That would be putting it here, an expanded use here at this line here. But again, petitioner wishes to have the fence, the pasture building building setback lines, at the property line, okay? Does anyone have any questions on that before? Kind of open it up for questions?
I have a quick one just on the slide that has the table that shows the number of animals allowed per acre. Yeah, that
Yes.
one right there. So there's 0.5 acres of dedicated pasture per large animal. So that's horse, pony, mule, donkey, the list. There's 2. And is that maximum 2 allowed per half acre or 2 allowed for this particular property?
So it is, so the maximum number of animals allowed on the property is 2 in the large.
Okay.
Yeah.
Based on the
So, and then-
size.
Yes,
These limits, okay.
yes,
So if they had
yes.
2 large animals, would they then not be able to have any of the other type animals?
They can have each in those categories
Okay,
there.
so
Yes.
they could have 2 horses. 8
Yep, yep, exactly.
4
Yep.
swine, 10 birds, turkeys. All right, okay, that answers.
Yep. You're welcome.
I do want to talk about all the setbacks, just because there's several requests with that. So what's shown here, he would or would not want everything within that yellow. I know that's the true setback, but that's not the ask, correct? The ask goes down to
The ask goes down to the property line. The red dash
The
line
whole
is
property line.
what they are asking. For a livestock raising conditional use, it would eliminate those setbacks unless there was a commitment or condition that was placed upon that granting of that conditional use. Yes,
and that's request is just to be able to leverage the maximum amount of space.
that is
But
correct.
that's also being asked for a future building that we don't know the placement of, correct? Did I
That
hear
is correct. So with a conditional use being granted, that falls within agricultural purposed building structure. According to our Unified Development Ordinance, even an improvement location permit would not be required. We've had situations where we've asked if we can at least get that building permit on file. But because of the constraints for those ag-related purposes, those things, we are not able to require that permit to be filed
And we're only doing that because
unless there's a commitment.
we've changed from basically hobby farm to that as the request.
That is correct. Yes, if it's a hobby farm, rural residential, that building permit would still need to be filed.
Actually asking to operate as an
That is correct. Yes, yes.
Take me back through the history of, it was previously zoned large lot agricultural.
That is correct.
And then did it become rural residential at the request of the previous owner? Was that a mess?
That is correct. Yes, the previous owner, there was a couple of things there, a long-term kind of thought. This particular property right up here to the north is owned by a gentleman who had farmed and had taken and continued, he'll take care of that farmland for the property owner there. You'll see even across the street, there was a large, Ag One, it still remains zoned as Ag One, that they felt like that they wanted to separate this out, rural res, for that property owner, so then he can buy and own, live there. To preserve his interests and his rights, you know, and his investments that he's put into this farm and this family for a long time. At the same time, then they took this property here to the east of 625 and then parceled it out with 18 acres. When that was presented, it was thought that they may split this property up into 2 separate properties. But I believe in probably realization of it being significantly in the floodway, and what was actually true and buildable, then they sold it then for as one lot there.
And it's.
And it's pretty
it's
limited on
been
what you can build
replatted,
here.
But it
Yeah.
looks like it's
4 different parcels. It's not.
Yeah.
So is this survey that's in here drawn in red? Can you go to that page? Is that
Yes.
what the actual
Yeah.
parcel looks like?
Yes,
So it's, that red part is
All-
15 acres?
18.3 acres right here.
Okay.
Yes. And you
So
can
the
see
house
this
is
is
separate.
the house.
Yeah.
Little-
This house has been parceled out
Yeah.
to
Okay.
be purchased, so that's already done.
Gotcha.
And then the one north for Mr. Perkins, this is his property now, has been parceled out, but the map is not
Yeah.
reflecting it. I'm
So the little house and the 18 acres are both our.
Yes, originally was Ag 1.
Okay, yeah, because that parcel was like both sides of the street, right?
Yes, it
yeah.
went all the way
Yep.
across, yes. The intentions too is that eventually when it is zoned still, Ag 1 to the west, but in time when they're ready to develop would likely be a residential subdivision right there in the property to the west.
On the west.
Yeah.
A lot of moving parts there, so.
Yes,
Sure, I.
there is.
As it is zoned right now, the hobby farm is allowed.
That is correct. It's permitted by right.
And that's what I'm seeing here in table 4.1. That's what you
Yep.
could have. And then the setbacks for that are the solid yellow or the solid yellow here,
Mhm.
correct?
Mhm. Yeah.
If it were still A1, it's wide open.
It is
You could
exactly
use
right.
it
The same
boundary
as
bound.
what a livestock raising would allow. Yes,
But you have to get a conditional use to build a house.
for Act 1.
For Act
Yes, correct. Yes. Yeah. The other thing is that with ag, or with a, hobby farm, we need to have a home built on the property before that hobby farm can be erected. The accessory structure can be erected. Also, those accessory structures will be, you know, limited to the square footage of, say, a normal, development, square footage, but then making it a conditional use that eliminates those square footage requirements. It eliminates the requirement to have a home built prior to the, operation of a hobby farm. Or even an accessory structure for animal purposes.
The dashed yellow line that kind of runs along the creek there.
Yes. That is where he is electing to move it forward to the west because he wants to keep that pasture contained on the west side of the creek. So this is in compliance with the hobby farm setback, the solid line, but he's gonna move this, to the west naturally. So the setback on the southwest is not of any issue or conflict with the Unified Development Ordinance. It's this piece here to the northeast.
And if we just, waved the magic wand and this was never gotten rezoned, would that limitation of keeping it to the west of the creek still exist because of DNR regulations or would it be wide open, boundary line to boundary line?
Yeah, so with DNR, they'd have to go through a bridge abutment permit. They're pretty extensive. I know that the petitioner had inquired in kind of a swinging kind of gable. They said that would not be permitted. There cannot be any obstruction in the waterway at all. It would have to be completely up over top of the creek there.
So yes, you could, but it would be very expensive to
Yes.
get cows over that creek to be able to use that area where the fence would then be on that red line.
So we're really just talking about 2 acres.
So, yes, that is correct. Yeah. From my understanding, I mean, years ago, this was an area of pasture, but it was accessed from the properties to the north versus this property now as it has been platted out. Is that correct? Does that sound right for the access? So they did not have any
The DNR approved to cross the
And,
creek,
yeah.
it just has to be manually done by Lead Road, yeah. But to do a bridge is an incredible amount of permits and it's not financially, it doesn't make sense to do. They did a creek crossing over about 12 years ago, next to the property, just north of there, 2 properties down the way, but I wouldn't be interested in utilizing that. And she's correct, I would want to have 2 separate pasture lands fenced off. The primary pasture would actually be the bigger tract. The secondary pasture would be the upper triangle, and that would mostly probably be the spring to late fall. Because you'd rotate out. In the woods, there still is quite a few mature trees around the perimeter, but it's inside the triangle where there's still a fair amount of saplings that could be reclaimed. So I've been working pretty hard at removing quite a bit of woods on the east side of the property. With removing a lot of
The west side.
west
The
side,
west
yeah,
side, yeah,
yeah.
west side, yes.
It's a little bit, yeah, yeah.
It's a,
Is there any kind of fencing that already exists north side or anywhere else
I
that?
think there was like in patches, maybe a little bit
There
here and
is,
there,
it's
but a
not
lot
very
of
good.
it.
So
Yeah.
A lot of the neighbors have already cut it down over the years, which is, a lot of it would have to be reclaimed anyway, or reinstalled and, but that's just part of it.
So is your plan to have, or is there any kind of, so there's no barrier between, on the dashed red line on the north end of the development there? There's no kind of barrier to
No.
livestock,
No,
but there would have to be one built,
there
right?
would have to be a fence line that would go along the yellow checker to the yellow dotted line. There'd be a pasture fence that go all the way up along there to completely quarantine off that pasture. And then there'd be a gate. And then crossing over to the other side, I'd have another gate and then also have it fenced off into a triangle.
The plan is to have a fence on the dashed red line, not the yellow line, right?
So that, I mean, that's the intent with doing a condition of use for livestock grazing, just to have the options of fencing and how we would petition off the pasture. Naturally, in a perfect world, even if I was approved this whole thing, it's highly improbable I would even execute the whole thing because there's a lot of timber that would have to be moved. It's more of just not having a tape measure, watching every few feet I go to figure out, it's just trying to figure out where the easiest way to clear through there is to save a lot of diesel and a lot of broken equipment and broken hydraulics. Trying to make my way through the woods.
That exhibit labels this as flood zone AE, but really the majority of this is floodway, not
Yes.
just flood zone.
Yes.
There is some flood
Are there
zone,
restrictions for fencing in floodway?
now, because it can be flowed through or down.
It's farm fencing, a
Yeah.
little bit different, yeah. But yes, you're right, it's
Not a
a
strong.
large amount is floodway,
And the
not
drainage
flood.
board is okay with the fence and the regulated drainage?
So that is something that he would have to go through, is get approval from the drainage board for this. They would, from my calculations, if he puts a building there, a home there, it's going to probably prompt that more than one, or at least minimum 1 acre of disturbance of land. Would have to go through the Madison County Soil and Water Conservation District to be able to get a general permit, as well. So yes, they would have to go and they would, that would be our recommendation, that they have to get those permissions, before any construction can be.
I'm not aware of this Madison County regulate fences. I think I've ever sent anyone there.
No, it just that they would have to get approval probably for
They
activity.
probably want
in-
gates and stuff. If it's a pipe, I'm not sure about.
Yeah, because I know we allow fencing in our easements, it's just, if we have to get in there, we're not paying to replace your
Yeah.
fence. You do it at your own risk. And especially so with farm style fencing where there's a flood issue, it's flowable.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that's a good question, I don't.
Yeah,
And what's fascinating is the triangle track actually is not a part of the flood zone. I think there's like a 10 to 15 foot sliver that goes along the creek, but that's actually the highest ground in the whole property.
right there,
Yeah,
yeah, a little bit right up in here.
Yeah.
Now it's on the NR side.
Um,
Oh, is that DNR regulation,
Yeah,
like proximity regulation?
it says they want wires and not woven, because it captures debris.
Oh, makes sense. Filtering.
And then there's a center point gas main up there too, that probably have to coordinate with them.
Yeah, as far as like depths of,
Well, even if you're allowed to put fence across there.
that's true.
Is there anybody, I guess we need to do a public hearing on this.
Mhm.
All right, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anybody online? In person? Yes.
Oh, did you,
And there are several letters on your drive, if you haven't looked at those. I guess if there's nobody online or in person, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
Well, I've got one,
Okay, I was gonna say, did you want to speak?
well, it's
Yep.
not,
Yeah, come on up.
Yeah.
well, this 150 foot we were talking about here a minute ago.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before.
Could you state your name?
Thomas Hudson.
Okay.
I was here last time before. I measured from my deck. I'm in lot 35, right? It's just the beginning of the curve. It's up, that next one more to the right there, yeah. And it's like 51 foot from my deck to the property line, and the deck is probably, at that point, probably 8 foot or something like that, so you could say it's 58 foot to the property line, or 59. Now, this 150 foot business that came up, that's the first I've heard of that. I could swallow that a little bit better than I could the 50 foot we got set back now. But the problem I see with this, right off the top of my head, everybody's house is not in a straight line. If you're gonna measure from the foundation, my house is probably the closest one, and then Bob Lashbrook's next door to me, his sets on the corner, and then Carpenter's, my God, it's probably from their foundation to the property line, it's probably 100 foot at least, maybe more. So I don't know how that yellow line, if you see what I'm saying? Does it make any sense?
It's probably from the closest, the furthest one north to the yellow line is 150 feet, the rest of them are further.
So
it's a
that's the way you figure that?
Probably.
Well, see, that's all new to me because I hadn't heard about the 150 foot, but I mean, if all this goes the way Tyler wants it, I mean, I could live with 150 more than I could the other. I mean, I still don't want to look out, be sitting there on my deck eating a hamburger and see a cow over there or a pig right next to me.
The 150 is allowed by right, so.
right.
Well, I don't know how I missed it, but
We didn't have this, picture last time and we were struggling with understanding the setbacks. So that's why we had asked for it
Yeah.
to continue on, so we could visually see that. So maybe that's why it didn't stick out, because we did not have a visual. And that's what this board wanted to see, because we were all struggling on visualizing it.
yeah,
I
well,
do remember the 150 feet being discussed though,
Yeah,
in that last meeting.
which is why we asked for this to be seen and drawn out.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm just concerned about value of my property and my enjoyment of my home and, you know. And, you know, I know I've been around animals a lot of my life, and I know the only thing you can expect is the unexpected. I've seen them get out, knock down a fence. I've seen them. We had goats when I was a kid. My God, they were destructive as hell. But you know, I mean, that's, as far as the house and all that, I mean, I'm all for that. But I'm just worried about the animals. If it were smaller animals, that would even be more tolerable to me, but when you're dealing with large animals, that gets into another thing, you know?
It's only gonna be two, right? Maximum,
Well, I guess that's what they're talking about.
so like one horse and one cow, and then
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, yeah, I just got to see what was gonna happen tonight. I mean, I saw this under 50 foot, so that's where I'm at on that. Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Uh, do the staff analysis, I guess, that we're ready for.
close public hearing.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 8 p.m.
So the function of the planning staff, you know, is to analyze the petition against the approved and relevant plans and ordinances, as well as existing conditions and variances placed upon the site. We are here to present the facts and that analysis, and based on that, we have the following comments. In this particular petition and this parcel, it was previously zoned large lot Ag 1, having once been a part of a larger agriculture parcel on the east side of 625. If you looking at the 2026 comprehensive plan update, that future land use map does reflect this area to be single family residential and in the surrounding areas as well. So as development comes in, and we anticipate that to be the case, we anticipate that developing more residential use. But do you also want to note that as we learned in the findings and finding in this course of this petition, that the parcel had been historically used for livestock for numerous years, from about the 70s to about the late 1990s. This area is large-scale farming operation. It's still in use nearby for crop farming in that adjacent space surrounding this parcel. But again, there is significant amount of SF1 residents as well to be considered. The petitioner is committed to a hobby farm, permitted use restrictions as to the type and to the count from the UDO. And the proposed use with restrictions and the hobby farm limits, it is and could be fitting within the surrounding uses of agriculture and large lot rural residential, giving the non-commercial nature that is intended if this conditional use is granted. But again, I do want to point out that there is anticipation that single-family residential subdivisions could easily come in and pop up right across the street here in the next 5-10 years. As far as staff, in taking a look at this, it would be my best recommendation to this board is that the best avenue to address this petition and this need would not have been through a conditional use. It would be through the ask of a variance of development standard. That permitted use for those hobby farms, that is something we have already determined. It is a use permitted by right. The only need and minimum relief necessary is the setback, which could be accomplished through a variance of development standard versus a conditional use, which then opens the town, our community, up to different enforcement measures, monitoring measures, uses and allowances that we then see the need that then there would be a pretty substantial list of conditions and commitments that we as staff would recommend if you did decide that a conditional use for a livestock raising is appropriate for this parcel. If that is determined by this board, we would recommend the possible conditions and commitments for your consideration. First is that if a primary residence is to be constructed, we would recommend that it's constructed with a proper ingress, egress, as well as access to the proper utilities, electric, water, sewer. Municipal water is not accessible in this area, but it is in our UDO that once it is available, they are to then connect to that. But we're asking that the residents then would be constructed prior to the hobby farm being implemented on the site. Also that there would be a limit as to the number and the type of animals on the site reflective of those hobby farm guidelines, that is listed specifically in the conditions as outlined in the UDO. Also, as far as those minimum setbacks and in line with those adjacent foundations being the minimum relief necessary for those nearby residential properties and property owners. And that specific setback to be determined in your findings of facts. At this point, that has not been determined and expressed by the petitioner because the setback is wanting to be eliminated altogether and not a compromise or an adjustment to that 150 feet from the foundation, 35 feet from the property line. Prior to implementation of any livestock raising, we also would recommend that the commitments would be that they would be required to be in compliance with all federal, state, local permits, approvals. That would include also Indiana DNR releases, local floodplain administrator, and also the Madison County Drainage Board, Madison County Soil and Water, any of those agencies, if there were to be any such use with a building within the floodway, also fencing as well, or even a detention pond, if that was intended to be constructed on the site. Also, it is our recommendation that require improvement location permit for any construction. That would be for the primary structure as well as any accessory structure, including animal building. And last, if there was a waste management plan for erosion and control to be submitted, being the fact that this is in a highly floodway property and area, that would be submitted to the planning department along with any building permits for the animal structure. Conditional uses do run with the land. And so this is something that if it is permitted, it is also a right that will be exercised and can be enjoyed by any subsequent property owner. So, you know, we have very much appreciated how this petitioner has been very respectful and been great to work with. And I know too that in the correspondence that we have received from his neighboring property owners, they too agree that they feel that what will be implemented will be with taste and will be a good intentions, you know, on his site. But it's just one of those things that also as a town and a planning staff, we also have to be able to make sure that we have provisions and coverages for the future as well. That being said, that is all that I have. You know, as planning staff, we will, whatever decision is made by this board, we'll make sure that, you know, we handle it with care and we can get to where, you know, petitioner can enjoy his property, but also just to, you know, be in consideration as well with the facts presented.
Got a quick question. This is probably for the petitioner. You're already exceeding the setback limits on the, you're gonna stay to the west of that dash line, build a livestock fence there.
Correct.
Well,
You go to the dash, the map with
Yeah.
the lines on it.
yeah, so you're gonna exceed standards on that side, so you're gonna be well more than 150 feet from the nearest foundation, all the way up to the area where the cattle went across the creek, that you can take them across the creek. the other yellow line, the east-west line that runs north of the subdivision, and the north-south line that's, I can't tell how far that is, but it's 100, it looks like it's 150 feet from.
Yes, that is
a
correct.
foundation
Yeah,
on the
they've got a
property.
home right here. Yes.
But what would the problem be with building a cattle fence along there in that setback?
So what the picture doesn't show is there is about 140 foot of land that goes back about 800 foot of pasture that I'm losing for the house that's built 10 foot off the boundary line. Where you see the red checkered line.
On the right, yeah.
Yeah, so we lose so much land because it's like what you guys said earlier, it's the 150 foot setback off whatever the closest house is.
Okay.
So that one property on that side, because of how you can't even build a house that close to a property line to this day. But because of where he's located, there's so much pasture land that we're losing. That's why the reason for removing the setbacks is it'll turn into a jigsaw. If I was to really try to maximize land, it's just too difficult to do. The pasture is still there. I've walked that land in that triangle throughout there. It just makes it easier if I don't have to work around each property, because those properties on the very far west side, they're very long and deep properties. I think that one property is about 620 foot deep, and then it goes into another property that's about 600 or 400 foot. The very far, I believe that's the northwest corner of that triangle.
Northeast.
Northeast, yeah.
So having a straight fence along there, I know there's difficulties, making a straight line in a.
There's just a lot of land
property.
we lose. We just lose a lot of available pasture land that has, the properties. So
Would it make it unusable though?
yeah, I mean, there's like, some of these people have an acre and a half in the backyard. And technically, if you go by the foundation of the home, we lose that whole stretch of ground that goes the distance.
So it's more the property line setback at 35 feet than it is 150 foot.
Well, the 150 foot is what's getting me on that side,
Okay.
on the very far east side from the property line, because the properties are built so close. It's 150 foot and or 35 foot from the property line, whatever one's greater.
Correct.
Yeah.
But even if you were to adhere to the hobby farm setback, you'd still be able to have a roughly 2.5 acre
That is correct.
parcel there and a 6 acre parcel there. And you've already committed to the hobby farm animal limits, which is 2 large animals. I just don't know that there's a need to reduce the setback. And if you're limited to 2 large animals, you really need more than 8.5 acres of pasture. There seemed to be a lot of strong opposition from neighbors. Every letter was negative, not personally toward the applicant, but just for the whole situation. So you take that into consideration.
Yes. And they were, I know you weren't here, but they were here, most of
Previous.
them, yes, yes. It was filled.
So Denise, when you say by right, hobby farm limits are by right and the setbacks are.
Yeah.
They don't come in.
Once he
come into play
constructs
at
a
all.
home, yes, he could by right, he can exercise the enjoyment of a hobby farm. He would just have to adhere to those setbacks, that 35 feet from the property line or 150 feet from an.
They do apply.
Yes,
setbacks.
yes, yes, yes.
And because we do have the rights of the hobby farm at some point. Kind of forcing established homes, some of which taken I'm losing track of time, at least 25 years. Forget when that neighborhood was started.
Maybe 90s or.
Yeah, late 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. That does kind of. It's that balance of one's rights impeding another's rights. And then obviously our ordinance, and because there's already rights there, of the yellow line, and we've already heard it from one person. Tonight that could be okay. you know, it's obviously not ideal, but they can live with that. And we do have to look at how this impedes on those other property owners' rights. Especially given that there are already rights within the hobby farm. I'm struggling with the red dotted line, quite frankly. I'm struggling with, the impeding on other people's rights. When things, this parcel could still be used as a hobby farm. And I think the other implications, if we were to approve this, I think we'd have other implications in the future on other properties that get presented.
Voluntarily rezoned. Sorry.
Correct.
Through that. So the criteria for a conditional use is different than for a
That is
variance.
correct.
So we have
There,
different
yes,
bullet points on
That's,
this. We just want to go through those or?
Yeah. Because it has, we have to.
That's what guides
Follow
the
that,
decision.
Yeah.
that's right.
So the first criteria, see it there, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. That's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one, because I could argue that it does impede.
I mean, the use by right with the increased buffer kind of provides that separation.
I mean, I think there's all wells back there, right? That's why the properties are the size they are. Yeah.
Answering that one in negative then.
That's how I would answer it.
Second one is the conditional use would not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in immediate vicinity for purposes already permitted. Now, we've kind of heard from the public on that one, an adjoiner. You know, potential impact to use and enjoyment of their property. I think, you know, if you compare what's allowed now and what the ask is, it kind of increases the risk of injury to the adjoining landowners.
Correct, I would agree with that.
They've expressed that clearly.
Yes, they are.
Establishment of the conditional use will not impede or alter the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding properties for uses permitted in the district. I mean, you know, the animals are already permitted, so reducing the setback, I don't think necessarily impedes or alters the development of surrounding. The only thing that would be developed is to the west and north,
Right, most is already developed.
so I think it probably meets that criteria.
I would agree.
And so the next one, adequate utilities, access, road drainage, and other necessary facilities, that's in relation to the proposed request.
proposed
right?
use, that is correct,
So
yes.
it meets that. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress and egress, so designed as to minimize traffic congestion. I think that one necessarily applies. It should increase traffic on the road. So that one is bad. And the last one is the conditional use will be located in a district where such use is permitted. All of the requirements set forth in the studio that are applicable will be met. So the conditional use is for ag, livestock raising.
Correct.
So that use is So the question is the use of livestock raising permitted in rural residential? That's the question.
Yes, and other, yeah, and all the other areas within that district. That zoning classification for rural residential.
I mean, it's surrounded by property where that's not allowed. right?
Correct. That is correct.
So
Yes.
it fails to meet that condition.
And
I
a
think it-
comprehensive plan as well does not support that as well.
Future land use map.
Yeah.
Single family.
Yes, it is.
I would say it failed.
Right, so it appears we've established that it did not meet 3 of the bullet points. Is there further discussion on that? On the criteria?
Struggling with this whole thing. This, the conditional use asked for here is to just essentially treat this as ag one. They want. That's,
Essentially, yes, that would be
So-
the implications. That would be, yes.
with a commitment, was there a commitment with that, like, on
The,
to follow the hobby farm standards for the number of animals?
the offered commitment was to follow the limits on the livestock count and type. That was what petitioner is offering as a commitment. What they're asking as a variance from and a waiver from is the setback piece to it. Yeah,
And then that would also
Yeah.
mean the need to have the house there first.
that is correct. Yes, that is in the natural rural residential development and requirements for rural residential. If we issue a livestock raising, that is a conditional use that comes and opens up some more uses that are ag related. So those controls and parameters are removed from that property if the conditional use is permitted. So it's going to give that ag benefits in this rural residential property. Is that,
Meaning that red boundary can be used. If
Yes.
they set up a barn.
the barn can be
There's
right
that-
up on the
they can
property
be
line?
Right up on any of those properties. Up to the red line, because it's rural res.
A home can be
Yeah.
instructed or constructed if it got a conditional use and, you know, before.
Which still, they wouldn't
Or-
allow a home in the flood.
There is developable area there.
Yeah,
on
that
very
one
far
area,
west,
but there's a
yeah.
lot that's still
Yeah,
wouldn't.
yeah.
But as far as the accessory, I mean, they could build right on, and to me, giving that when there's already established home,
It's one of those like, how far back do you look? At one point, this was all farmland. And then we carved in a high-end subdivision surrounded by farmland. It's like, with, to me, and I'm trying to weigh the things against each other. It's like when people build, homes next to an airport and they complain about the sound of the airport. But the airport was already there. So I struggle with that this was ag one, this was A1 for all of this would have been permitted. Somebody, a previous owner apparently made a decision to try to rezone this, to do something different with it. Or if that hadn't happened, all the downside we're talking about could be going on right now. I feel like there should be an opportunity here to craft a solution. Allows the petitioner, his family. I don't have a problem, I don't have a problem with the setback. As hobby farm, I don't have a problem with the hobby farm setback. I think that provides the buffer that's needed. I wouldn't have a problem, with a variance or whatever it would take to allow them to go ahead and create essentially a hobby farm there, without building the home first and meeting some of these setback requirements as designated in the yellow dash line. I think that's a fair solution. That, mitigates some of the neighbors' concerns while allowing, the petitioner's family to start using this property, I think, in a way. Is that for the petitioner, is your desire to start using that before you build a home there?
So we actually have the house staked. We're probably gonna break ground in the next 6 weeks. We working with Brett at the city to get my new construction permit. I'm not actually interested in building a livestock barn. I don't wanna hold on to waste. I don't wanna I've cleaned out enough stalls in my life. I don't ever wanna do it again. We're planning to just have a few animals and having them graze. And then we'll probably have like a lean-to or like a shelter house to have a break from the weather. I think I'm primarily just interested really if there's some type of compromise with the setback. We don't have to actually remove the setback altogether if it would make the board feel more comfortable. If we could have maybe like a 50-foot from the property boundary line as an even keel throughout the whole property, that would probably solve a lot of my headaches because it gives me an additional 30 to 60 feet at some of these big setbacks in the property to be flexible to work my way around trees. So if you guys would be willing to compromise somewhere on the setback, just making it off the property boundary, I would be willing to do that. Definitely don't have any interest for a livestock barn. Be willing to sign something to agree to that, to limit that use.
Do you have an idea of how many and what kind of animals?
Yeah, so right now it's really longhorn cattle. I really want to have 2 cows, longhorn. I deal with people all day and I don't want to see people when I come home. I just want to stare at some animals and it's a little piece of my past. We'll probably have a few chickens until they all die from the eagles or something eating them. And if my kids take care of a goat, we might have a pet goat running around. But that's really probably all I would have an interest in having right now until my kids are older. I've got a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old. And right now they play a lot of video games and we got to get them outside. We actually live in Fox Run. We have a really pretty home. We have a pool. And we spend more time inside than we do outside. So I really want to make a difference and I want to try to get my kids more involved outside and exploring and getting their hands dirty.
Personally, I would like to see what you just said brought back to us in the form of a commitment. With the animals you intend to have, which are going to end up being the maximum animals, the setback that you can live with, and work with the planning department and get a commitment back in front of us that then we can evaluate. 'Cause there are so many moving parts. This may be the most moving parts I've seen in one of these requests.
Yeah.
So that's just, that's speaking
Yeah.
for myself.
Yeah.
As a variance to the hobby farm setback instead of a variance of use.
Whatever it would
Yeah.
take to get that done.
That is what that is staff recommendation.
Okay.
I feel that would have been the best alternate going from initially. That would have been a simple request. It would have been something we can control, we can enforce. It's more definitive. We know kind of what that setback is. Again, this hobby farm is permitted. He doesn't have to seek approval. He doesn't have to even make a commitment on that if he's not wavering from that table. In looking at what Mr. Hazel just mentioned is 50 feet off of the property line. That gives closest to the closest foundation. That's going to give approximately 100 feet from that closest, most northern parcel or property there with the house sitting. So
Mr. Hudson's house or?
I think it's its neighbors.
it's the one maybe.
Pardon?
The neighbor to your west looks like his house is a little closer.
Yeah.
It's back a little farther. I measured about 50 feet.
Yeah, this property here and this property here. So if we went right here again, that's 35 feet. If we bumped it out here another additional 15, you're looking at still a good 100 feet difference. So it came back in the format of a variance of developmental standards, simply with a 100-foot setback variance, allowing a 100-foot setback and allowing a 20 5, or we'll discuss this, you know, what do you need for an opening area end to end here in this narrow throat here? You know, that would be the 2 areas that we would be looking at needing a variance from the setback. And then, of course, then too on the east side here as well.
So for the petitioner, that 50 foot from the property line, it's just easier to measure for you. What if it was 75 feet? From the property line? And that would give 125 feet from the nearest foundation, is that right?
I think,
Because we've got
Yeah, I think the closest house is about
70.
Yeah.
80. 80. You're close to 150 already. You're
With
getting
75.
75 off of the property.
It's all those other houses, I mean, they tilt away from it, so if you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
use the furthest north house, 75 feet. Gives you close to 150 foot from the nearest foundation, but it's easier to measure.
Yeah.
Be okay with that.
And it doesn't have to be a straight line.
No, it gives the
Maximize that.
flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you're talking about the corner where the dash lines meet, some variance in the, distance from the property line.
Mostly the
So allow the
triangle.
crossing.
Yeah. Yeah, mostly the triangle, yeah.
You're very far from the homes there anyway,
Yes,
so I
that's all right.
think that's a big deal.
Yeah, correct. Yes. It would just be from property line to property line at that. point.
And how would you do that? How would you enforce that with your 2 longhorns? With a fence?
So both sides will have a fence. There'll just be a swing gate on each side of the creek where I can open up the crossover.
So that would just basically, I mean, it would be, you'd stop that fence, the dash line, right at the crossing there, and then you'd start it up on the other side. Joe.
Yeah.
And how about the north-south? You do the same thing with the fence?
The north south, are you talking about down below?
No, the north-south yellow line, I don't know which part of the triangle that's actually.
Oh, I see.
About right here.
B squared.
Yes, that would all just be completely contained, all fenced in.
Yeah.
That one would just be by
Yeah.
by the nature of the UDO would be 35 feet off of that property. There's no nearby foundation to come into play with that.
So like Rob had mentioned earlier about having that written out as an agreement from the petitioner.
So I think coming back and presenting a variance for developmental standard, this is a conditional use request. So we can't really, if I'm correct, we can't really sway from what is being asked. It's either an agree, being denied or approved. But we can't turn this conditional use into a variance of developmental standard. So we would then petition, present this in the light of a variance of developmental standards with the setback variance from the hobby farm.
Well, and the neighbors need to know that it's changed.
Yes,
Notice.
yes.
So they have an opportunity to.
And no matter what happens here, that's not gonna interfere with your getting your house built or.
No, we're still planning to build the house, yeah.
Clearing of the brush and all that.
Good idea.
I think so too.
So if we vote to deny this request, then he can reapply.
Absolutely. There's nothing in the UDO that prevents him from reapplying with the different requests.
And
That's
that would
correct.
be a variance from development standards.
That is 100% correct.
But you
Yes.
would still be limited by the hobby farm
Yes.
numbers and all that.
Mhm.
Further discussion? Walk through the criteria here, so I guess we're ready to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny the conditional use.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor to deny the conditional use, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries.
So it just creates more work for Denise.
It's okay. We're gonna get this for Tyler. He's gonna have a nice property there, so.
I hope we don't have any. In a while. This has been one of the toughest.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Like you said, there's a lot of moving pieces and parts, a lot of factors and,
And a lot of residents to consider.
yeah. We'll get there. Yeah.
Try to not make them unhappy.
Oh. And he has a good relationship with his neighbor.
Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Sure.
All right.
Bang the gavel.
I.
All right. Meeting adjourned.